YouTube? It's the Fantasy Professor back at it again with a brand new video. It's November 19th, and I lost quite a bit of money last night, and that's part of the fact due to players underperforming, not living up to my expectations and not living up to how I saw them. Just like D'Angelo Russell, for instance, he got ruled out. CJ Miles was another guy I liked. He got injured halfway, like in the first quarter, so he ruined all my lineups. D'Angelo Russell, I had him in almost half my lineups. Even though he was 6% owned in the GPP I played, this lineup lock sucks, but it is what it is. But to recap from last night, here are the guys that went off. I mentioned all these guys in my previous video. As you can see, Nick Batum had 48.5 fantasy points. Kevin Durant had 55, so he was an animal, especially against that Boston defense. Marcus Smart got injured in the first half, so they just blew them out of the water. Mason Plumlee had 39 fantasy points. Drew Holiday coming back from his wife and caring for his wife. He dropped 38 fantasy points. DeMar DeRozan in that overtime game, he had, 44.75 fantasy points. Kyle Lowry also had 45.75 fantasy points. Danilo Gallinari had 33.75. Emmanuel Mudiay, 45.5 fantasy points. Chris Paul, 46.75 fantasy points. Kawhi Leonard, 53.5. Klay Thompson, 39. Griffin, 51.75. Oladipo, 41. Kemba Walker, 40.75. Now, these are all the guys that I mentioned in my productions that actually did well. Now, I don't put in the video who didn't do well, but if I had to name a few, who underperformed last night? Thad Young underperformed. Trevor Booker, Steven Adams. A few of those guys I liked, and they didn't live up to my expectations. But with that being said, hold on. Let's get started with today's slate. Now, it's November 19th, and it's a big 9-game slate. In Draftkings, you can play the all day, which has 1 through 9, or you can break it down and have 8 games. With that being said, the first game on the slate is Utah and Houston. It's a 203 over-under, and there's 2 guys I like in this game, Gordon Hayward. Now, I didn't make a lineup, so I don't know his price, but going against Trevor Ariza doesn't scare me, and he's their leader. He's their focal point on that team, as well as James Harden, who's probably in that $12K price range. They're at home against Utah, which is scary, but if you see that high over-under, Utah games are typically in the 180 over-under, but now that's at 200, so I feel like it's going to be a close game. Not fast-paced. Obviously, Houston's one of the fastest teams in the league, but Utah's the slowest. So when they come together, it creates a very slow game, but I feel like Houston's offense should outperform Utah's defense. Second game on the slate, it's Boston-Detroit. It's a 200 over-under. There's one guy I like from Boston. They're on a back-to-back. I think they played 3 games in 4 nights. So I don't know how well they'll beat Thomas Bradley and all those guys. With that being said, my value play of the night, especially with Marcus Smart out and Jay Crowder out, I like Jaylen Brown quite a lot at 3,000. Now, I know it's a tough matchup going up against Tobias Harris and Marcus Morris, but we saw what Jaylen Brown did to LeBron when he put up that 37 fantasy point game. He can get hot at times, and he can get it going. So I like him a lot. At that minimum price tag, he provides very, very high upside for tonight. Especially Andre Drummond, 7,600, going up against. If Al Horford's in this game, I might consider otherwise. But he's not the best defender. He's a good defender, but he's not elite like Andre Drummond is. With that being said, Drummond should have a nice. He has that fantasy upside to get you that 20-20 fantasy point game. That 20-point, 20 rebound. At 7,600, he's a great price. I like targeting centers, especially against Boston, who right now have no defense whatsoever. We saw what happened yesterday. Marcus Morris, 5,000, and Tobias Harris, 6,000. Now, without Marcus Smart, Jay Crowder, they'll have Jaylen Brown and Kelly Olynyk, 2 guys that are not known particularly for their defense. With that being said, Marcus Morris and Tobias are a great, great spot, especially if they're locked into at least 30 minutes. Now, both these teams are coming off a back-to-back. Detroit just got blown out by Cleveland, and Boston just got blown out by the Golden State Warriors. So this should be a nice matchup. Even though it's a 200 over-under, I still feel like Detroit's going to blow out Boston because they have no way to defend the interior presence of Drummond, Morris, and Tobias. So I like these 3, especially if they're getting at least 30 minutes a game. Um, yeah, so those are who like in that game. The third game on the slate, it's Dallas and Orlando. It's a 188 over under. We saw what happened last night. They got blown out of the water. With that being said, I like Dwight Powell at 3,900. Now, if Dirk is not in this game, which I don't think he will be, 3,900 is a great price going against the Orlando front court, who is not doing well and meshing defensively. Otherwise, at 3,900, he provides very high upside for that minimum price. Seth Curry, 5,700, and Wesley Matthews, 5,100. Now, I know Curry, I had him in at least 30% of my lineups last night. He burned me. He didn't do as well as I expected. I mean, what are you going to do? You just got to keep on moving forward. But by recency bias, everyone's going to be off him tonight. So I feel like he's a great value play, especially if Williams, Barea, Devin Harris, all those guys are not in. This opens up a lot more time and opportunity for Seth Curry. Now, I don't know how he'll be against Elfrid Payton, who's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league at the point guard spot. But Seth Curry should, I feel like he's going to outproduce his value tonight. That's my prediction. As well as Wesley Matthews, 5,100. They're going to need someone to score. They need their offense to come from somewhere. And with Harrison Barnes struggling right now, I feel like Wesley Matthews could be their guy at 5,100. On the flip side, I like Elfrid Payton, 5,500, going up against Seth Curry, not known for his defense, or Wesley Matthews, coming off that Achilles injury. He's 30 years old. He's not his former self, that 3-and-D wing player. But Elfrid Payton's in a great spot at 5,500. As well as Evan Fournier, 5,600. Regardless of who's matched up against him, he should be in for a 40 fantasy point night if he gets those 30 to 35 minutes that he usually gets. As well as Serge Ibaka, 5,400. I like targeting guys against the Dallas front court. We saw what happened yesterday when that got blown out. This is a great spot for Serge Ibaka as well. And they're all in that mid-tier price tag. So you can do a game stack theoretically with Ibaka, Payton at the point, Fournier at the shooting guard, and Ibaka at the power forward. All right, fourth game on the slate. It's Miami and Washington. It's a 202 over-under. On Miami side, I like Hassan Whiteside, 9,000. Targeting him against Marcin Gortat on the Washington side. Now, Whiteside, that price tag jumped up a bit. He was at 8,000 last game. Now he's at 9,000. So that scares me a little bit, but he gives you that 20-20 upside. But Drummond is a nice pivot, especially in that bounce-back spot against going up. If you wanted to be contrarian, I feel like most of the people are going to be on Whiteside because of what he does on and off the floor. Deion Waiters, 4,800. Now, I like targeting him against Bradley Beal or Marcus Thornton or Sheldon McLennan. Deion Waiters is as streaky as they come. He's like KCP in a way. But at 4,800, he gives you that very, very high upside. And they need their offense to come from somewhere. As well as Goran Dragic. Now, if he's out for this game, obviously you don't play him. But I saw what he did against Milwaukee the last game. And if he's fine and he's playing, he should be able to produce. So he's risky. But in GPPs, that's what you do. You go and you take risks. On the flip side, I like Otto Porter, 6,600. I like him a lot, especially if Justice Winslow's not playing. We saw what Otto Porter did that previous game. Otto Porter, even though he has a 6,600 price tag, he gives you very, very high upside, and he's in for a regular amount of time. As well as Markieff Morris at 6,000. I like targeting power forwards specifically against Miami because they have no one to defend them. So this is a perfect opportunity for that. All right, fifth game on the slate. You got Charlotte and New Orleans. It's a 206 over-under. At the shooting guard spot, I like Nick Batum at 6,700. He had 48 fantasy points in last game, so I like him a lot. Targeting him against Buddy Hield, Drew Holiday, and those guards. As well as Kemba Walker, 8,200. He had a 40 fantasy point game, but he obviously didn't live up to his price tag. I thought he was going to give like a 60 fantasy point game, but things happen. But 8,200 and 6,700 apiece. They give you very, very high upside, especially for tonight. On the flip side, you got Drew Holiday, 6,000. Now, if you watched my video, I mentioned him, and he actually did very well for his salary. Was in that 5,000 price range, I think. Drew Holiday justified his value, obviously. He led their team to a win, so obviously they're winning something. So that covers that game. Sixth game on the slate. You got Phoenix and Philadelphia. It's a 206 over-under. I like stacking a lot of guys in the Suns, and I'll tell you why. Eric Bledsoe, 6,700. Now he's going against Sergio Rodriguez, not a good defender in any way possible. He had a really, really awful night last night, very ugly. 6,700, he's in a nice bounce-back spot, as well as Brandon Knight. Even though he did produce, with Devin Booker now out, he's going to get a lot more run. At 4,300, he intrigues me a lot, and he gives you that 40 fantasy point ceiling, especially for tonight, and that upside. PJ Tucker is another guy I like at 3,300. He's a nice pivot from Jaylen Brown, who I think everyone's going to be on, because I like targeting small forwards specifically against Philadelphia because they're not known for guarding their wings especially well. At 3,300, he's a lock and load for at least 25 to 30 minutes tonight, especially with Warren out too. So he's going to be in line for all the minutes. At 3,300, going against Robert Covington, what else could you ask for? There's nothing better than that. On the flip side, no. The guy I like on that team, Jared Dudley, 3,700, going up against Jahlil Okafor if he plays, Dario Saric, Ilyasova. Doesn't scare me one bit. 3,700, that low price point intrigues me a lot. Also, Alex Len, 4,600. Now, Joel Embiid got ruled out for this game, and so this opens up a lot more opportunity for Len to dominate down low. We saw what centers have done over and over and over again to Philadelphia's front court depth. They're nothing. So go ahead, get Len in a lot of your lineups tonight. On the flip side, Nick Stauskas at 3,200. I saw what he's been doing. He's been coming off the bench lately, but he's been producing. He's been consistent. So I like him at that 3,200 price tag, as well as Robert Covington. Now, I talk so much shit about his defense, but at 4,600, he could be their go-to scorer at times. He just needs to get it going. And with no wing defender guarding him, there's nothing better than that. All right, seventh game on the slate. You got Golden State and Milwaukee. I didn't write the over-under. Damn. It's all good. Giannis, 9,100. Golden State's coming off that back-to-back. Now, I think KD is going to be on Giannis just because of their size matchup, which is a tougher matchup for Giannis, but at 9,100 at home. I saw what they did last year when Golden State came, and Golden State was on that 26 win streak, and Milwaukee just blew him out of the water. So this is a great spot for Giannis at 9,100, as well as Matthew Dellavedova, 4,200. Now, Dellavedova in the past two finals has a history, especially against the Golden State Warriors. So this is a nice revenge finals matchup again. So I like the grit and grind of Dellavedova. I feel like Jason Kidd saw what he did in the playoffs, especially against Stephen Curry. So they might have Dellavedova matched up as Curry, which should lead to him having at least 35 minutes tonight. And he has that high ceiling of 30 to 35 fantasy points tonight at that 4.2K price tag. Also, I like Jabari Parker at 6,200. Really, really intrigues me, especially going against Draymond Green on a back-to-back. I don't know how well he'll be defensively, and with that being said, he provides high upside for tonight. Now, on the flip side, Kevin Durant, 9,400. I saw something that they're not going to be ruled out for today, and with that being said, he should be locked and loaded and ready to go for this matchup, as well as Draymond Green, 7,900, and Klay Thompson, 6,000. Now, if you just want an exposure to this game, Klay Thompson's the way to go at that cheapest Golden State Warriors salary for one of their big four. But you can stack, theoretically, Thompson, Green, and Durant in one lineup. That's what I did, and I cashed in one of my games. I got Curry, Thompson, Draymond, and Durant in one lineup, and actually did quite well. So if you like game stacking like that, by all means, go ahead. But I'd be hesitant because they're all in the back-to-back. So that's up to you if you want to decide. Eighth game on the slate, it's Chicago and Los Angeles Clippers. It's a 203 over-under. Oh, I'm sorry. This over-under is a 223 over-under. I forgot to write that, but it's very high scoring, and it's, even on a back-to-back, it's a great indication that all the guys are going to play and they're going to get a lot of minutes. Chicago and Los Angeles Clippers, it's a 203 over-under. Jimmy Butler, I saw what he did to Utah, so he doesn't scare me going against Los Angeles, specifically on a back. No, Los Angeles has played 3 games in 4 nights. This is going to be their 3rd game. Jimmy Butler at 8,600. I like especially if he's matching up against Luke Mbah Moute. Doesn't scare me at all. At 8,600, he is very, very high upside tonight. He's in that 50-point fantasy point upside. And I feel like he'll get around 40, 50-ish. We'll see what happens with that. But I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite plays on the board. Another guy I like, Jermaine Grant or Isaiah Cannon. Now, Chris Paul's coming on a back-to-back. I don't know how long he's going to play. With that being said, Jermaine Grant or Isaiah Cannon should be in line for a lot of minutes, especially if Rajon Rondo is not playing in this game. Next guy I like, on the Clippers side, I like DeAndre Jordan, 6,400, and Austin Rivers at 3,300. DeAndre Jordan going against Robin Lopez. Even though he's a good defender, he's not a great one. That being said, 6,400, I saw what he did to DeMarcus yesterday. He was very, very well. And at 6,400, he can give you 5 to 7x any given night. Especially Austin Rivers, 3,300. Let's say this turns into another blowout again. Austin Rivers should be in line for a lot of minutes. At 3,300, just like PJ Tucker, he gives you a lot of upside at that low minimum price. Ninth game on the slate, the last one. We got Minnesota and Memphis. It's a 204 over-under. I was looking and seeing what holes each team has in their defense. Levine specifically, 5,900 going against. I feel like Tony Allen is going to be on Andrew Wiggins because he's their best lockdown defender. And that being said, maybe Levine will have Vince Carter on him because they're both pretty amazing dunkers. That'll be strange to see. But at 5,900, he intrigues me a lot at that mid-tier price tag, as well as Karl Anthony Towns, 8,100. Now, even though they're on the road, 8,100 for Towns should go to town on Marc Gasol. So these are the type of games he gets up for. Maybe if you want to consider Marc Gasol, go right ahead. But I like Towns at that 8,100 price tag. He's a nice pivot from, you can either pay up for him compared to Drummond, or he's a nice pivot from Hassan Whiteside at that $900 lower price tag. On the flip side, Mike Conley, 6,800. He gives you very, very high upside, especially going against Ricky Rubio. I know he's a good on-ball defender, not a great one. Mike Conley is a great spot at 6,800. So also Chandler Parsons, 3,700. He's the GPP play. I guess I wrote that weird, but he's a nice GPP play for tonight. 3,700. I saw what he did to Dallas. That game was horrendous. Both teams combined only scored, their over-under combined was a 144, which is very, very bad. So, what are you going to do? But thank you guys so much for watching. If you like my videos, comment, subscribe, and tune in for more. I'll see you guys later.